The first one was mostly just stuff I personally knew about, but thanks to all the comments and suggestions, there's way more entries now, and there's stuff that I researched that I might not have known about before. Also, the first one, I was trying to read it in a spooky way, like chills or something, but it just made me sound dead inside, so I'm gonna use my normal voice this time. I love how everyone's saying I'm basically horror moist critical. That's like the greatest compliment to me. That's basically the entire idea I had with this channel, was like explaining creepy stuff but in a casual way, like not an hour-long video essay. I just want to say thanks for checking this channel out if you're one of the people who found me through the Iceberg video. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this reanimation explanation presentation. If you're watching this video, you've probably played or seen at least one of these, so I'm gonna quickly go through this tier so we can skip to the good stuff. Plants vs. Zombies. Plants vs. Zombies probably introduced most people to the tower defense genre. 49 different plants you can collect to defend your house from zombies with hilarious, wacky abilities, all paired with majestic art and music. This is a huge series with tons of spin-offs and merchandise, and a few sequels of varying quality. Call of Duty Zombies. Call of Duty Zombies, the game mode first introduced in World at War. It's an addictive and fun experience, even by yourself. There's people trying to set records on it all the time, seeing how many rounds they could make it against the zombie horde. This community gets really deep with its mechanics and strategies. It's really interesting to watch even if you don't play it. Resident Evil. Resident Evil is a huge and really old series. It started in Japan, basically the Toho of zombie games. Depending on the game, you play as Leon Kennedy, Chris Redfield, Claire Redfield, or Jill Valentine. You have to solve puzzles and unravel a story that's going on in whatever location you're stuck in, whether that's a mansion, or a city, or out in the wilderness. There's a ton of different special types of zombies in this, like Mr. X, who's basically a giant invincible zombie. There's also zombie dogs, a zombie that crawls on the ceiling, and even stuff like mutant plants. This was the first mega popular mainstream zombie video game. Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead is a 4-player co-op game. You play as one of 4 survivors, and you make it through different campaigns, which are in different areas. You have to find an escape route, and it leads up to a finale where you get on a helicopter or fuel up a car or do something to get out of the area. Games that came after it and tried to copy it just could never replicate it. They just can't get the right combination of simple but fun gameplay, lovable characters, and iconic zombie designs and sounds. It's easily my favorite Valve series, and probably in my top 3 games ever. Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead is a lighthearted British zombie movie. It's about Shaun and his friend, and they basically go outside one day and it's the zombie apocalypse. They group up with some survivors and go to different places around London. In the end, Shaun gets the girl and lives happily ever after. This basically made its own tiny subgenre called zomcoms, which are basically just romantic comedies where zombies are a part of the plot. Night of the Living Dead. Created by George Romero in 1968, Night of the Living Dead is considered the grandfather of all modern zombie stories. Most games or movies borrow at least one thing that was popularized in this film. This was the first mainstream zombie movie, and it's permeated pop culture ever since. The fungus from The Last of Us is real. The fungal infection that turns people into walking mushroom colonies in The Last of Us series is known as cordyceps, and this is an actual genus of fungus that exists in real life. However, it's harmless to humans, and it only infects ants. Ants in the wild will brush up against something that has spores on it, or eat something contaminated with the spores, contracting this fatal fungus that controls their mind. Infected ants will climb to the highest point they can reach and latch on. Once they're locked in place, after a few days, the fruit will burst out of the ant's head and release its shower of spores to continue the cycle. Fortnite beta. Before Fortnite was known for its battle royale, its original idea was to be a zombie survival game. Playtesters described it as like Minecraft meets Left 4 Dead. And in very early stages, like before they knew what kind of art style they wanted to do, the concept art for the zombies were way creepier than the final product. Fortnite was in development for 6 years, and it was almost a completely different game. Dancing zombie change. In Plants vs. Zombies, one of the zombies you can encounter is a dancing zombie. He moonwalks onto the lawn and summons 4 other backup dancers to follow him. However, what you may not know is he didn't always have the disco design. In old videos of Plants vs. Zombies, you can see a zombie that looks like Michael Jackson and even does his iconic Thriller dance. Unfortunately, Michael Jackson would pass away weeks after Plants vs. Zombies came out. PopCap got in legal trouble with Michael Jackson's estate. They made them redesign the dancing zombie, and from now on, every official artwork in game uses the disco zombie. Some original physical copies from when the game came out on Xbox might still have him. If you're one of the lucky people who have a rare Michael Jackson copy of Plants vs. Zombies, that's really cool. Another similar incident with PopCap was the Zomboni. This time, they were actually allowed to use the Zamboni tractor, but the Almanac entry in the final game was just changed to like an advertisement, basically. Project Zomboid. Project Zomboid is a sandbox survival game. You spawn in an empty city after a zombie apocalypse, and you can get items and food, you can build a base, and just avoid zombies. This is probably the most realistic zombie game. There's so much stuff you can do. You can build a farm, you can go hunting in the woods, you can get your own car and repair it. There's also a million things that'll attract zombies to you. Shooting, alarms, even if you're just watching TV with the volume too loud, zombies will come up to your window. This is a really deep and mechanically interesting game. You'll probably like it if you like the more survival and exploration based games like Unturned or Dying Light. Sunny. Sunny is an RPG flash game named after the main character Sunny, who is an intelligent zombie. Similar gameplay to Persona or Final Fantasy. You have a party and you can equip them with gear and make them do different moves. Sunny goes on an adventure to save his friends and fight the military and other zombies. This game is kinda old and I just haven't seen anyone mention it in a long time. House of the Dead. No, this is not referring to that episode where House dreams he's in a zombie apocalypse and he has to escape the hospital. House of the Dead is a 1990s Sega arcade game. You would shoot zombies and progress through the level, going through different paths. Depending on if you did something or not, like saved a person, a different path would open up. This was also the first game that popularized fast zombies before Resident Evil. Re Your Brains. Re Your Brains, or Reply Your Brains, is a comedy song by Jonathan Colton, and it's probably most well known from its Easter egg in Left 4 Dead 2. Jukeboxes that can be found in some levels will play music, and if you cycle through the songs, eventually it will play this one. When the song reaches the chorus, it'll summon a horde of zombies. Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare. Funny thing, I used to think Red Dead Redemption was a zombie game just by the name. Red Dead Redemption is like a cowboy western themed RPG, and you can choose to be good or bad. This DLC adds a side story about a zombie infection sweeping through the country, and you play as John Marston traveling through towns and helping survivors. Fans really love this, and it's been on a few lists of the best DLC of all time. Unfortunately, Rockstar Games has never made any continuation or remake of Undead Nightmare. Gakugarashi. You've basically been spoiled just by the fact that it's on this iceberg. Gakugarashi, or School Live, is an anime that appears to be about average schoolgirl stuff, but it quickly reveals its true colors. This group is trapped in their school during a zombie apocalypse, and they've basically just fortified the upstairs of the school. They have a garden growing on the roof, and they have to make a run to the mall to get supplies. One's going crazy and completely ignores the zombies everywhere. There's a few sad moments, but don't worry, none of them die. Lollipop Chainsaw. Lollipop Chainsaw is an absolutely deranged game. You play as Juliet Starling, a cheerleader who knows magic, and she uses this to save her boyfriend who was bitten by a zombie. However, now he only exists as a severed head, and you can use him to solve puzzles or help you in combat. You travel through the city and you fight a big zombie boss at the end of each area, who has a different music genre as their theme. Basically the South Park of zombie games. Sankareya. Sankareya Undying Love is an anime about this guy who loves horror, and he meets this girl who falls off a cliff and dies, so he decides to reanimate her. It's a really sweet and wholesome story, despite the disturbing premise, and it's one of my favorite anime. And within like the first 5 minutes, there's a Shaun of the Dead reference. It's truly a hidden gem. Nicktoons Halloween Bumper. This commercial, which was thought to be lost media, it's a short commercial called Nicktoons Gets Zombified, which would air around Halloween in 2010. The interesting thing about this one is how scary people remember it being. Most people were probably pretty young when they saw this, and the way they describe it sounds like a creepypasta. It's very staticky, and then it cuts to random characters like Fanboy and Chum Chum, just green and rotting. They're missing eyes. They're laughing maniacally. I didn't believe this was real until I saw the actual video for it. Zombies ahead. What this is referring to is when someone gets access to one of those road indicator signs, the most common joke is to put some sort of message warning about zombies. It's a relatively harmless gag, but it's still illegal. I'll get back to fake zombie warnings deeper down on the iceberg. Left 4 Dead original concept. The initial idea for Left 4 Dead was created by Turtle Rock Studios developers who were messing around in Counter-Strike Source and spawning huge waves of bots only equipped with knives. They actually found this was very fun, so they started work on a Horde mode prototype. A team of 4 would have to get to the end of the level and plant the bomb while being chased from every direction by bots with knives. In the 2023 Valve leaks, one of the maps found were Zombie City, which was the first map ever made for Left 4 Dead. Cockneys vs. Zombies. Cockneys vs. Zombies is another British comedic zombie movie in a similar vein to Shaun of the Dead. In it, these two siblings have the idea to rob a bank so that they can get money for their granddad's nursing home, but their plan fails because of the zombie apocalypse, and they go help a bunch of old people fight zombies. It only made around $110,000 at the box office worldwide, despite its £2.5 million budget. I've seen this one, and it's pretty funny and underrated. Plague Inc. Not Another Zombie Game achievement. In the game Plague Inc., you can choose what type of disease you want to control. You've got your standard bacteria, fungi, virus. There's also a category of special diseases, which change how the game mechanics work. They add extra layers of gameplay or different abilities. The Necrovirus's main ability is to infect or reanimate people into zombies. Once you've gathered up a dangerous amount of zombies, the gameplay shifts to you in an arms race against the world's military, and you have to evolve smarter or stronger zombies to be able to even have a chance before they kill all the infected. This achievement is for destroying the world with the Necrovirus without ever creating zombies. This is one of the hardest achievements in the game. The Necrovirus is very weak by itself, and it's the easiest disease type to cure, so it basically relies on good RNG. Zombie Farm. Zombie Farm was a mobile game which had similar mechanics to My Singing Monsters. You can grow crops and zombies. You can combine zombies in the cooking pot, and you can also have zombies with hybrid plant parts, and you can use them to go fight bosses in the story mode. I played this a while ago, but it seems like it's just disappeared off the App Store since. However, all is not lost, as there's a group called Zombie Farm Archive that are working on restoring this game. They have playable copies of the game that you can download. Plants vs. Zombies Lost Media. For a series as big and old as Plants vs. Zombies, it's kinda expected that some stuff is gonna slip through the cracks. A huge example is Plants vs. Zombies Adventures, which was basically memory hold. It was so hyped up at the time. There was even a countdown for how many days until PvZ Adventures dropped, and it ended up shutting down only 2 years later. And it's not like no one knew about it. It was the second Plants vs. Zombies game ever released after the original. Since it was a Facebook game, there was no way to save it or download it or copy it, so it only exists in the form of screenshots and videos now. There are also several China exclusive games that might not even be playable anymore because they've been removed from the App Store. The holy grail of PvZ Lost Media is the beta builds of the game. Up until like a year ago, we didn't even really know if they existed. And there were some interesting findings like a zombie dog enemy and plants that never appeared again. Paranorman. Paranorman is an animated movie about this boy named Norman who has the ability to talk to ghosts. And he's ostracized by everyone because they think he's crazy until they find out he's the only one who can save the town. Every Halloween, zombies will invade the town if someone doesn't go read this book at a certain location in the woods. He goes to like this pocket dimension to talk to this little witch girl, and through her memories he sees that they killed her because they were afraid of her power. He tries to make her less angry, and he successfully calms her down and tells her she's free, breaking the 200-year curse. This movie is also made by Laika, the claymation studio, but I think it's overshadowed by Coraline. Black Ops Zombies ports. Black Ops was unique in that it's the only Call of Duty game that was ported to basically every console in existence. And some more obscure, weird ports include the Wii, DS, and mobile. I actually have Black Ops for the DS, and the cool thing about it is the zombies maps in this version were completely new. They weren't included in any other port of Black Ops, and they weren't included in any more Call of Duty games after Black Ops. The Wii version is interesting in that there's glitches that exist on it that don't exist in the Xbox version. The few people who attempt records on the Wii version have slightly different strategies than the Xbox version, and the Wii version is also a lot more unstable at high rounds than the Xbox version, which means records on the Wii version are a lot lower too. Usually in the range of round 50 to round 100 is when they cap out. Call of Duty Zombies Mobile is exactly what you think it is. It's a mobile port of Black Ops Zombies. The gameplay is mechanically the same, it's just more complicated because you have to use your fingers for everything and the graphics aren't that great. It felt like everyone I knew at school had this on their phone. It was delisted from the App Store a while ago, so it's pretty hard to play it now. Conplan 8888. Conplan 8888 is a plan the military made for fighting different types of zombies. They basically use it as practice missions or like hypotheticals for training. They've prepared for viral zombies like 28 Days Later. They've prepared for voodoo or undead magic zombies, and they've even prepared for vegetarian zombies. But I've seen the movies. If anything, the military is probably horribly under-equipped to fight zombies. World War Z. World War Z is a book describing perspectives of random people who survived the zombie apocalypse from all over the world. It's super interesting, like not even as a zombie book, it's just a great piece of literature. It's telling about the lore and history of a zombie apocalypse that had happened in this alternate universe. Something I hadn't really thought of before in the context of a zombie apocalypse: organ transplants. Someone with minuscule traces of viral particles, like not even enough to make them sick. If their organ is given to someone, they might become a zombie within days or hours, depending on the organ. The movie World War Z is way different than the original book. The original book had more of a documentary style. Even if you've seen the movie, you should read the book. Original Haiti legend. Before Night of the Living Dead, the term zombie referred to like the mind control type more than the undead monster. This term originates from Haitian folklore, where a person called a boko can practice both good or evil magic, including raising the dead. Through a concoction of toxins, including stuff like pufferfish venom, they could make the victim enter a near comatose state where they could do basically anything with them. Some more nefarious scoundrels would bury their victims and then dig them up later to make them work on a plantation. American author Zora Neale Hurston actually believes she encountered a woman who was a zombie in Haiti. There was a woman who mysteriously appeared, but everyone already recognized her and said she'd died like 20 years before. There was also a man named Clairvius Narcisse who claims he was turned into a zombie after his death in 1962. He had been admitted to Albert Schweitzer Hospital for various symptoms like fever and coughing up blood, and he's claimed he remembered being pronounced dead by 2 doctors. 18 years after his death, he showed up again in the village he was from. He told everyone that he had escaped the sugarcane farm that the sorcerer had forced him to work at. He was even medically examined, and they proved that he was the same man who was buried in 1962. The Southern Effect. Have you ever noticed how many zombie games or movies that take place in the United States take place in this very specific region? Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, and sometimes Florida, Texas, or the Carolinas always seem to be where the main characters are from. The only reason I can think of is these are places where zombies would be at their weakest. They would rot away quickly due to the heat, bugs, and humidity, so it makes sense why there'd be a lot more survivors in those locations. Rolang. A rolang is a type of zombie that allegedly stalks the Himalayas. And these aren't your average zombies where you can kill them by decapitating them or destroying their brain. To take down a rolang, you need to find their specific weak spot. Some of them you have to cut their flesh to kill them, some of them you have to break a bone to kill them, and some of them you have to find a mole on their body. Some tour guides say they've seen them in the distance. Jiangshi. Jiangshi are like crosses between zombies and vampires from Chinese mythology. They move by hopping around, and this is because of rigor mortis. Jiangshi translates to stiff corpse in Chinese. There are many ways to counter them or make them go away. They're weak to any item made from the wood of a peach tree. They can be immobilized by sticking a talisman on their forehead. They can also be repelled by fire, a rooster's call, or seeing their own reflection. Similar to the zombies in Haiti, this legend started because priests would allegedly resurrect people and have them walk to their grave. They would do this at night, and they would ring bells to warn people to stay out of the way because it was believed it was bad luck to see a Jiangshi in person. Revenants. Revenants are a European legend, mostly from Irish, Celtic, or Nordic folklore. Similarly to vampires, it was believed that certain people would come back after they died, depending on what they did in life. There were a whole bunch of extra precautions to take when you buried someone so they couldn't get back up. There's several accounts from the 1100s of people being attacked by revenants or dying overnight. I don't know, if we found out zombies aren't real, then maybe werewolves were the ones doing it. That guy. This entry refers to the trope of a character who will get bit and then not tell anyone, either because he's scared they'll kill him or just out of maliciousness. And then when they inevitably turn, it completely or almost leads to another character's death. Don't be that guy. Flesh Eater. Flesh Eater is a 1988 indie production written and produced by Bill Hinsman, who played one of the zombies in Night of the Living Dead and also plays the titular Flesh Eater in this movie. Undead have inverted healing. It's common in a lot of fantasy or magical settings that any undead or zombie creature will be harmed by healing potions or spells. For example, in Minecraft, zombies and skeletons are damaged by healing potions. This also happens in Dungeons and Dragons and anime like Konosuba and Overlord. I don't know where this trope came from, and usually there's no lore reason. I would assume it has something to do with decay, or that undead are usually evil creatures or have no souls. Montana Zombie Alert. In 2013, in the town of Great Falls, Montana, a regular afternoon TV block was interrupted by an alert saying the dead were rising from their graves. This alert would go on for 2 minutes, complete with an EAS alarm and announcer reading instructions on what to do. This was probably pretty startling for anyone watching TV live at the time. The perpetrators are still unknown. Kart delusion. Kart delusion is a psychological condition where the patient believes they're dead or they don't have a body. This can randomly develop in people who are sick or after a severe accident. This condition is believed to be caused by lesions or damage to the fusiform gyrus, an area of the brain that's responsible for recognizing yourself, and in some cases was an adverse reaction to antivirals, meaning they put them on this medicine to treat whatever's making them sick, and they developed Kart delusion. But when they took it off, they went back to normal. Left for Quake. Left for Quake is a total conversion mod for Quake. It was playable on the PSP. It's basically just a slightly downgraded version of Left 4 Dead. It has the original weapons, and it also has pills and medkits. This mod came out before Left 4 Dead 2 was released. The creator was working on a remake, but as of 2013, this mod is completely abandoned. Transmissible spongiform encephalopathy. If that sounds scary, good. It basically means a disease that rots holes in your brain. It's a family of prion diseases. Basically, a prion is a misfolded protein. Your body makes proteins all the time, and it has to fold them in a specific shape. But for some unknown reason, when one is misfolded, it causes all the other ones to misfold, and the buildup of misfolded proteins becomes toxic. A free-floating bit of protein basically becomes a virus somehow. Some of these you may have heard of are mad cow disease, chronic wasting disease, Kuru, and Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. All of these cause mental symptoms like tremors, seizures, and weird behavior in animals. They'll walk around aimlessly, bump into things, or even attack other creatures. Prion diseases have no known cure. Prions can only spread through infected brain matter, so you're pretty safe. Land of the Dead, Road to Fiddler's Green. This refers to a movie tie-in game for Land of the Dead that came out on PlayStation 2. This game is mostly obscure because of its bad reviews. Critics did not enjoy this game at all. Looking at this footage, it looks like Left 4 Dead before Left 4 Dead. There's a story mode and a multiplayer mode, and you travel through various locations. Like the first level is a farm, and then you get to a city, and you can pick up weapons like your classic shotgun, pistols, an axe, a bat, and there's even similar mechanics like car alarms and having to press a button to open a door or activate an event. Lost movie Dead End. This entry refers to a 1985 comedy zombie movie that's completely lost to time. Only a few copies in the world exist, if it was even sold publicly. The only discussion of this movie on the internet was a few reviews on IMDb and a blog post from 2012 also looking for this movie. There are a few theories, including that people are misremembering this movie as Diary of the Dead since the plot is so similar, or even that this is just a hoax and it never existed. Apparently they did some crazy stuff, like using actual animal guts instead of special effects, and it got the actors sick. The director, Emerson Bixby, has answered questions about this movie before. He's said on a radio interview that it was one of his first movies, and he's offering a $10,000 reward to anyone who can track down a copy of Dead End. He maintains that this is real, he definitely made it, but it was never released. But wait, it gets a little deeper. The actors who starred in this movie were also in Bixby's 13 original films, and they've never appeared in anything since. All of these movies have very little information on them. Seattle Zombie Woman. This clip was circulating every corner of the internet like a few months ago. In the video, you can see this raggedy looking woman walking down the street crying and mumbling to herself. She's missing patches of hair and appears to be soaked in blood. And when the police showed up, she went crazy and they had to get like 6 cops to hold her down. Looking further into this, it was some sort of stunt for a protest, and she ended up getting fined for wasting police resources. White Zombie. White Zombie was a 1932 movie, and it's notable because it was the first movie about zombies ever. A couple goes to Haiti, and they stay in a castle, and this wizard guy meets the man, and the despicable wizard tricks him into buying a potion that turns his girlfriend into a zombie. This movie is super old and it's public domain now, so you can watch the whole thing on its Wikipedia page. 2012 Miami incident. On May 26, 2012, a man named Rudy Eugene attacked a homeless man and gnawed his face off. And for a few days, no one knew why he did this. There were theories that he was like going crazy or there was some new virus going around. But the most likely explanation was some sort of psychoactive drugs because Florida. That type of stuff is crazy. It basically makes you feel nothing. People on it will jump off buildings, get run over by cars, or get shot and get back up. Chernobyl footage. This entry refers to an infrared video shot from the sky in Chernobyl. You can see a soldier retreating from 3 creatures who seem to be lurching towards him, and eventually they catch up to him and tackle him to the ground and eat him. There's a huge debate about the origins of this video. The most common theory is that this was a trailer for the Stalker series. The creepy thing is, the studio who made Stalker claims they didn't make this video, they don't recognize it. And this video has apparently been floating around the internet for way longer than Stalkers existed. Brownsville zombie soldiers. I'm not sure how real this is, but it's an interesting story. In Brownsville, Texas in 1985, 2 people pulled over to rest for the night in the cab of their truck, and they started hearing sounds in the middle of the night, so they went outside to check it out, and they were surrounded by dead Civil War soldiers. Not ghosts, literal zombies. They were all wearing the same torn up uniforms and were shuffling towards them. They got scared, so they got back in the truck and left, and apparently they found handprints all over the outside of the cab later. I think I'd actually believe this story more if they said they were ghosts. Well, you've reached the end of the iceberg. Thanks for watching or listening this far. I hope you found it interesting or learned something new, because it was pretty fun researching and making this. Anyway, if this is your first video by me you've seen, I hope you check out my other stuff, because there's a lot more of this type of me explaining some creepy topic or whatever I wanted to talk about. That's about it. I'm out of here.